The following is an encore presentation of stories from the Dooralong Transformation Centre.
Where the time is 10:10. If you were listening before the news, you would have heard Tanela. I briefly introduced Tanela to you. Tanela is from the Dooralong Transformation Centre, and she's here today to tell us about her journey into addiction and the way in which she's turned her life around and is now sort of heading in the other direction out of addiction. So again, good morning to you, Tanela.
Good morning.
Okay, now Tanela and I have had a good little chat whilst the news was playing, so I know a little bit about Tanela's backstory. I know enough to know that it is drugs that was the issue for you, wasn't it, Tanela? Yeah, and they came into your life at a fairly early age.
Yes, around 17 it was gas, and then
Yeah. You've probably got to explain what gas is.
Gas is a bit like ice.
Yeah.
It's a bit rougher on the taste. It's very similar to ice is the best way to describe it.
What does it give you? Does it give you a high?
It gives you confidence. It gives you a big ball of energy. And you can feel like you can go for hours.
Conquer the world.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. That's the upside. What's the downside?
The downside is come down, where you feel tired, you're just lethargic, and you just want to sleep. And I think the rage is a big thing with coming down off drugs as well.
The rage?
Yeah, just I was very short-tempered coming down off drugs, and if I couldn't get them, my temper would go through the roof.
And this is where you would perhaps lash out at family and friends?
Yes, definitely. I would take it out on them if I couldn't get what I wanted. If something didn't go my way, it was basically anything that would light the fuse for me. And
were you earning money at this time in your life?
Earlier, yes. I did work for my dad for 7 years in a mining industry, and then after that I actually worked in a call centre for 5 years. Yeah.
And you say you started on gas and then you progressed is the wrong word, but you went on to something else.
Yes, so I did use gas on the weekends, just as a party drug, and then I stopped for a while because I moved out of that town, and then I actually moved back to that town about 6 years later, and that's where it escalated from gas to ice, and ice was just a weekend thing, and then I would start taking it to work, and that's where I progressed to using every day.
So did you feel a need to take it every single day?
Towards the end, yes, I felt like I couldn't live without it. I couldn't go to the shops. I couldn't get up and have a shower without it. I couldn't do any daily things without having the use of drugs to do it.
We hear stories on the media and in the press of people who say things like, I would rob for my own grandmother to get my fix. Can you identify with that sort of desperation?
Yes, I can. I've actually stole from my family, and I'm not proud of it now. I have apologised and owned up to everything that I have done to them, but it still won't take back that regret and guilt that I have now for what I've done to supply my drugs.
But it shows you, doesn't it, just how it can take over your mind and turn you into a different person, because that's not the real Tanela, is it?
No, it's definitely not. It's basically went all against my morals. I was definitely a different person, and I would do anything to get drugs. So
but you say you were still managing to hold down a job in that call centre?
I was. It wasn't that bad until I actually met someone that was using a lot more than me, and we ended up being together, and he suggested, why don't you take it to work and have some just before you go into work, because of working in a call centre, so I could handle a lot more calls. And that's where it progressed to me falling asleep at work, and my boss ended up laying me off.
So you're now in a relationship with somebody who was also using?
Yes, I was. Yes.
That doesn't sound as if it's going to end well.
It definitely didn't. It was a really brutal domestic violence relationship, and that lasted for about 2.5 years. It wasn't easy.
And when you say domestic violence, was he physically violent towards you?
Yes, he's actually broken my nose 3 times. He broke my hand, he broke my foot, and he's also broke my ribs.
Why did you stay with him, Tanela?
I think because he broke my confidence. He made me believe that it was that I was no one without him and that I would need him. So he actually started to make me second guess myself with everything I did, told me I was wrong or I couldn't think that way, I couldn't do that way, just playing a lot of mind games and manipulation with me to make me believe that I couldn't be without him, I couldn't live without him. So that was how it went. I never thought that I'd ever be in a domestic violence relationship. I was always very strong-headed, but I think the drugs and him just slowly getting his own way and pushing me, it broke me to believe that I had to stay.
And it's also very disempowering, isn't it? He's telling you time and time again till you believe it that you're hopeless, you can't live without him, you couldn't manage, you're stupid, you need me.
Yes, that was definitely how it was.
And you believe him?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. And your drug taking is increasing, I imagine, during this time.
It was. I think it was to numb out the abuse. It was to numb out my parents having a divorce, I think. That's where it started as well. And I think, it was just mostly the relationship that I think that's where my drugs progressed, is it was easy to take drugs than to deal with the shit that he was putting on me.
Yeah, I understand that. And look, as I said, Tanela and I have been talking off air, and we don't want to spend too much on the downside of Tanela's story because there's a much more hopeful and positive story to tell. But Tanela did tell me that she reached a stage where you were virtually homeless, weren't you?
Yes, I was. My mum had actually put a AVO on me and my partner, and that was for 2 years, and I actually had my name on the lease, so I had to leave and live with him. But then his mum decided she didn't want me there, and she was calling the cops on me and stuff as well, so I wasn't welcome at that house. And I had basically nowhere else to go. My grandma didn't want me living with her as well because of the way I would outburst when I didn't have drugs. They didn't feel safe, which I am really upset that I made them feel that way. I wish I didn't, but all I can do is fix it now. So
yeah, it happened.
Yeah.
And yeah, you can ask for forgiveness.
Yes.
Yeah. So you were sleeping rough.
Yes.
What did they call it? Couch surfing.
Yes, I was definitely couch surfing. I would go to anyone's house that had a house, and I would use them to have somewhere to stay. And I would often sleep in my car or my ex's car. Or in a couple of times I've actually slept in the bush because I was coming down on drugs and I was that tired I didn't care where I fell asleep. So
And when you look back and recount those stories as you've just done, do you recognise yourself as that person?
I think that was more or less the drugs than me.
Yeah, it wasn't you.
No.
It wasn't the real Tanela. It was it was a drug induced. It was the drugged Tanela.
Yes.
Yeah. Look, we're going to break for music, and as I said earlier, Tanela has got a much more positive story to tell because at some point in her life, and we'll find out when, somebody recommended Dooralong to her, and after a little bit of initial resistance, Tanela said yes. But we'll find Centric Coast talking to Tanela this morning from the Dooralong Transformation Centre. We left Tanela's story at that point where drugs had really got a hold on her. It was, hard drugs. It was ice. She was in an abusive relationship. Lots of violence, physical violence against her, and we left her when she was couch surfing and sleeping in the bush, sleeping in a car. But the story doesn't end there, does it, Tanela?
No, it doesn't.
So when did things start to turn around for you?
Well, before detox, I actually found somewhere to live for a week before I went to detox, which was good, but it wasn't a good environment. But it was when one of my friends, Brody, actually told me that he was in recovery in Dooralong, and he was pretty bad on the drugs as well. And for him to ring me and tell me that I would love it there and I could do it if he could do it, it sort of made me think twice about my merit worker suggesting it to me. So I actually rang Teresa and said to her, no, I want to go to rehab. I want to be clean. I'm not, because I was lying to her because of COVID. I was only phone calls. I was telling her I was clean, I was doing this, I was doing that, but it was all lies. So I actually told her, I want to go Dooralong, I want to get clean, I'm sick of this life, I'm done with it. And she was shocked. She didn't know what to say when I first said it, because I'd actually done Merit about 18 months prior to that.
And Merit is a...
It's a referral into treatment program for drugs.
Yeah.
But yes, I actually failed it 18 months before, and they sent me to community corrections because I failed it. and I ended up breaching that and getting myself into a lot more trouble. But when I went back to court and she seen me, she took me back on. So I was very, very lucky to have her back. And I'm so grateful that she's helped me to get to where I am.
So it was your friend Brody who really sort of gave you hope that there might be a future without drugs?
Yes, he definitely did, because he was very bad on the drugs, and I didn't think that he had any idea that he was going to get clean. He had no, plans to do it. But for him to ring me and tell me, yeah, if I can do it, you can do it, it made me think, why would he tell me it's great? Why would he say that if he's not telling the truth? So when I rang Teresa and told her, she actually contacted Dooralong, and I actually had Barry ring me.
From Dooralong?
Yes, and the first phone call didn't go that well. He actually told me to have a better attitude, and he'd ring me back the next day. So I made sure I had drugs before I rang him, so I was in a good mood. And yeah, I actually got a bed in detox and got a bed in Dooralong, and within 3 weeks I was in detox.
Yeah, and that's quite quick, because we have heard of so many people from Dooralong having to wait 2 or 3 months to get in.
Yes, there is a long waiting list, but I can understand why. It's such a great rehab.
Yeah. So the great day arrives, you go to Dooralong. This is your first rehab?
Yes, it is.
You had no idea what to expect?
No.
And I think they drive you in the bus all the way down those long country lanes, and
yes,
eventually you arrive at Dooralong.
Yes,
drive through the big iron gates.
Yes.
What are you thinking at this stage?
I was very agitated, still short fused. I was very upset with the head manager, Lyndall, because she wouldn't let me have a cigarette when I got out of detox, and I'm allowed to smoke on hospital grounds. So I was very upset about that, but she did stop and let me have a cigarette. So I was a bit calmer, but I had no idea what to expect when I got in there, at all.
And it's understandable that anybody would be anxious about getting to sort of a rehab or a treatment centre, and especially if you've just done detoxing, your whole body's a little bit fragile, and your mind is fragile as well.
Yes.
But we know that you stuck it out, because that was 7 months ago. No feelings of, no, this isn't working for me, I'm going home.
I have thought that a couple of times, but I never actually put it into motion. I packed my bags a couple of times, and then I've gone, what am I doing? I don't need to leave. I don't need to control what's going on outside. I need to stay here and get better.
Yeah. What have you discovered about yourself that you didn't previously acknowledge, maybe?
I've learned a lot of self-worth back from my previous relationship. I lost all that. I've discovered what my morals are and my strengths and things that I need to work on, but I've also discovered a lot of support that I didn't think I'd have. I never thought I'd have real friends, which I've made plenty in Dooralong now that I've been there. They're really genuine, caring people. So I think that's the biggest part that I love about it.
Yeah. And as I've said this before on very many times, I would find it so challenging to have to open up, particularly in group work or even one-to-one with my counsellor, about things that have happened in my life which might have caused me to start with the drugs in the first place. I'm thinking to myself, I'd rather just not share those with anybody. So did you find it hard?
Yes. When I first went in, I didn't speak to any of the other participants. I thought they were just trying to find out information about me for some reason, or they were going to try and rob me, because that's the scene that I was used to. So I would only say hello to someone, but that was it. I wouldn't let them know anything else. So I was very shut off. And in my first meeting, I was petrified. But I just told him that I hoped that I got my relationship back with my family, and that was what I was aiming for. And that really helped me open up a bit. And once I realised that they're just genuinely nice people, and I wasn't used to that sort of comfort, I soon became one of them.
Yeah. And you're so glad you stayed.
I am very, very, very glad that I've stayed. I'm glad I haven't acted on any irrational emotions and just gone. I'm very glad that I've stuck it out as far as I have. I wouldn't have learnt as much as I did.
And it's an ongoing journey as well, isn't it? It's not like I've been there 7 months, I'm cured now. I mean, there will still be work to do in the future.
Yes, definitely. I don't think you can just go out of rehab and say you're cured and not do any meetings or keep in contact with your supports. I think it'd be very important to do meetings once I leave, and to keep in contact with a lot of people from Dooralong, and to still go to chapel sometimes when I'm able to, just to be able to keep that connection with Dooralong. Just that support will be great.
Okay, we're along this morning, who has been at Dooralong now for 7 months. One of the things Tanela said in that last little chat that we had with her, that she hoped by going to Dooralong and working on herself, that she would be able to rebuild the relationships with her family. Has that happened, Tanela?
It definitely has. Better than ever.
Better than ever.
Yes. With my addiction, I actually lost contact with my family. My brother was there for most of my addiction, and within the last 6 months of my addiction, he actually cut me off, which was really, really hard to not have my family there. But since I've gone into Dooralong, they've been nothing but supportive of me. I've gained their trust back, and I didn't think I would get that trust back in a very long time, considering I did steal from them and betrayed their trust for drugs.
And what does that mean to you?
It means everything to me, that for my family to turn around and say, your family, we forgive you, is such a big relief to me, that I could actually earn it back, and they forgave me for it, which I never thought they would, and I thought I could never forgive myself for it.
But they have forgiven you. They've reached out to you again.
Yes.
Sounds like you're very close, and it's a very loving relationship.
It is now. It's great being able to ring them and ask them what my dog Ruby is doing every day. I always ring my mum and ask my mum to FaceTime me just to see my dog.
Just normal things, really.
Yeah, it's just simple things. Whereas in addiction, they all had me blocked. They wouldn't, because I was they never knew how I was going to react when they answered the calls. They never knew what was going to happen. So it's nice now that they actually answer my calls. They trust me with just little things like being able to use my mum's car. Whereas last time I would use my mum's car in addiction, I wouldn't bring it back for 2 days or something. And being able to use my dad's car, whereas last time I used that in addiction, it got smashed up and cost him $18,000. $1,800.
So you say these are just little things, but they're not little things, really, are they? They're huge things, because they show that trust and that love is back again in the relationship.
Yes.
Yeah. And you hope to graduate, is it later this month, graduate from Dooralong?
Yes, I'm hopefully graduating on the 28th of April.
Yeah. Have you got a message, perhaps, for somebody else out there who was like Tanela sort of 7 months ago, who's a little bit in denial that there is a problem in the first place, and maybe just sort of, thinking that I can cope on my own, and perhaps is in that situation that you were in, they're in an abusive relationship, they perhaps have lost the love of their family and are trying to do things on their own? What would you say to them?
I would say to them that you need to stop to try and control every aspect of your life. It was one thing to surrender my life over to the program. And I would say if you're humming and hawing about whether you have an addiction, then you do. And if you're using every day, then you do. And if you're doing things that go against your morals to support that drugs, then you definitely do have an addiction. And I would highly recommend Dooralong to get your recovery. It's the best rehab, and they're so supportive, and the workers, they're all ex-addicts themselves, so they know what you go through.
So reach out for help.
Yes.
Even if you think you don't need it. I mean, if your family have cut you off, you've got no job, you're in a bad, unhealthy relationship, pretty clear indicators that you've got a problem. Yes,
if you've lost everyone and everything, then yes.
Yeah. So as far as the future is concerned, I would imagine there's a little bit of apprehension as well. I mean, gratitude for the fact that you've re-established contact with your family and that you're clean, but you've been living in this little bubble for the last 7 months.
Yes.
Is there a little bit of anxiety about getting back into the real world?
Yes, there definitely is. It's scary because it's not that safety bubble, like it's not that safe community. Not everyone's as nice as they are at Dooralong. So it's a bit nerve-wracking, but I will get there. I'm starting to adjust myself back to the outside world, as they call it in there, by going out every weekend and just adjusting to being back at home, and just to recognising my triggers and using my tools that I've learned in Dooralong to deal with them and deal with life on life's terms without the use of drugs. But But I think that I will be okay as long as I keep in contact and use the support network.
Yeah. So use the support network which they will put in place for you, and also the support of your family. So you've got two great supports there.
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Look, it's been a delight to talk to you this morning, Tanela. Thank you so much for coming in. We just pray that God will sort of continue to work the improvements and the wonderful things that He's doing in your life, and that once you do graduate, you will not fall prey to any of these sort of temptations that are out there. So, yeah, thank you. Give our love to all the guys back at Dooralong. They do amazing work. The staff are sort of unbelievable there, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
You've been listening to an encore presentation of the Dooralong stories, which can be heard live every Wednesday at 10 a.m. and repeated 8 p.m. Sunday and 1 a.m. Wednesday, right here on 94.9 rema.cc.